Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's May 21st, and on this day in 1986, a wild shot by Ralph Sampson sank the Los Angeles Lakers, propelling the Houston Rockets into the NBA Finals. This was Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals in the fabulous Forum. Houston led the series 3-1, with the Rockets riding Hakeem Olajuwon's 35-point performance in Game 3 and then 40-point night in Game 4. The Showtime Lakers had something to prove, though. These were the defending world champs and, in fact, had represented the Western Conference 4 straight years in the NBA Finals. Pat Riley was at the helm. They had Kareem, Magic, James Worthy leading the break. They were not supposed to lose. They were the top seed. The Lakers got out to a 12-point lead after the first quarter, and from there, the Rockets spent the rest of the game digging themselves out of that hole. The Rockets had the twin towers of Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson, 7-foot giants, equal in stature to Kareem, at least on the court. This was also a really physical game. Houston's Lewis Lloyd and the Lakers' Michael Cooper got tangled up a few times and were jawing at each other in the second half. After Sampson slammed one home, a hard foul by Maurice Lucas nearly resulted in a fight, with Sampson having to be restrained by Olajuwon. And then with 5:16 to play in a tight game, Olajuwon and Mitch Kupchak started throwing punches that resulted in both players being ejected. Now that is a trade-off that you would make every day of the week if you are an LA Laker, and it was positive for LA. But still, the Rockets hung in. With the game tied at 1:12 and 1 second showing on the clock, Houston had the ball out of a timeout, and this is what it sounded like on that day.
McRae will inbound, 1 second on the clock. Sampson. It goes, it's over. A miraculous shot by Ralph Sampson. Off balance has given the Houston Rockets the Western Conference Championship and a trip to Boston for the NBA World Title.
Now, the clock back then did not display tenths of a second, so was it a full second, a half second, a few tenths remaining? Well, nobody knew, so Sampson didn't feel like he had time to catch and shoot. So instead, he caught it in the air with his back to the basket, and he flicked it towards the rim with his right hand. It hit the front of the rim, dropped through for the game winner, sending Houston on to the NBA Finals to face the Boston Celtics. It was perhaps the ugliest shot to win a game in the history of the NBA, but there are no style points in basketball, and after the game, CBS's Pat O'Brien asked Sampson how it felt to hit the game winner.
I think it was probably the best experience I ever had in my basketball career.
What about that last shot? Was that a planned shot, Ralph?
Well, it was only 1 second left, and I had to, do something with the planned play to come inside, and I had to get it up, and I got it up and it went in.
The Rockets' magic ended in this game, though. They would eventually be swept by the Celtics in 4 games in the NBA Finals. Also on this day, in 1989, the NASCAR boys were racing in the Winston, which was the All-Star race, featuring the previous year's race winners as well as some special exemptions. Charlotte Motor Speedway was once again the venue, and just like I talked about a few days ago with Dale Earnhardt's Pass in the Grass, this was a 3-stage race that finished with a high-octane 10-lap run for the checkered flag and the big fat check. Darrell Waltrip and his Tide Chevrolet led the field in the 10-lap sprint and held the lead for the first 8 laps. With 2 to go and driving in turns 3 and 4, Waltrip came down the track and he pinched Rusty Wallace. Wallace hit the left rear quarter panel of Waltrip's car and spun him out. Waltrip slid through the infield grass down the front stretch, which later became known as the Tide Slide. Wallace took the lead on the final lap and then took the checkered flag and the $200,000 check. Waltrip was not happy, and Waltrip's pit crew was not happy. As Wallace was heading to victory lane, Todd Parrott, one of his crew, was running behind the car, and he threw a shoulder into a tied team member just standing around, and at that point, it was on. The teams came together, punches were thrown, fingers were bitten, words were said. It took a few minutes to clear the scene, but a funny thing happened in the aftermath of that wreck and melee. Darrell Waltrip wore the black hat going into this race. He was Jaws, the guy who wouldn't ever shut up. He was the bad guy. Rusty Wallace was the good guy. Didn't do anything wrong. Clean driver. Well, those roles flipped quickly, and from that point for several years, Rusty Wallace wore the black hat as the bad guy, and Darrell Waltrip was the cagey veteran that people started pulling for again. Of course, that led to DW heading to the broadcast booth later on, and from there it was boogity, 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 let's go racing, boys, right into history. All right, let's see if we can do a story without punches being thrown. In 1952, it was the Brooklyn Dodgers swinging the bats in a big way in the first inning in their game with the Cincinnati Reds. After Bobby Adams threw Bill Cox out to record the first out of the game, the proverbial floodgates opened and would not be closed for a while. The next 19 batters reached base safely for the Dodgers. That was 10 hits, 7 walks, 2 were hit by a pitch. The Dodgers plated 15 runs in the first inning to set a major league record for runs scored in the opening frame. 12 of those runs were scored with 2 outs, also a record. The bottom half of the first inning took 59 minutes to play. Brooklyn held on to win 19-1. In 1977, Seattle Slew won the second leg of the Triple Crown, taking the Preakness Stakes by a length and a half over Iron Constitution. And in 1901, FIFA, the international governing body for soccer, was founded. Time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? Black olives are really just green olives that stayed on the tree a little longer to ripen. That's all for today. Come on back tomorrow for more This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.